Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's the end of July and some of you are finishing up orientations on campus. You're getting ready to welcome student leaders back and you have to train them. You have to get students back on campus. I remember summers on campus all too well. I haven't been gone that long, so I know that you're all very busy. So I will try to keep this brief, but certainly please unmute yourselves and ask questions throughout. I did in the chat box just note quickly what today's agenda is going to be about. And I also sent that via email a little bit earlier today. So the first thing I just wanted to say thank you so much to all of you who've been helping out with their institutional renewals. We are over 1,000 institutions renewed as of today or as of yesterday, which means we're actually trending a bit higher than we have. So each year we trend a little bit higher right around this time. And those efforts are certainly a combined effort between the communications that we are doing here at NASPA HQ and the work that you all are doing. One of the things I wanted to just let everyone know about, I did this and solicited this information back from the regional directors and membership coordinators back in April, so I know that was like 1,000 years ago, but we just sent out the reminders. So there were some emails that were going to be coming from the regions that were sent out. So the region thank you emails from the regional directors, which were edited and sent back to us back in April, again, beginning of May, have gone out. They have seen a really great open rate from our members. And then we have sent out reminders to those in your regions that are still waiting for payment or for them to renew for this year. So but we are doing really well. I do just want to quickly share that a couple of things on here. I know I just sent this in the email yesterday, but you all are doing really great in terms of the institutional renewals. This is a dashboard that I have internally here at NASPA. So if there's anything that you see that I'm showing you today that you want to see more of, very specifically for your region, please make sure you email me directly and I will get that information to you as you need it. Again, because each region has a number of different schools and just the size of the regions themselves, when I do report this information out in terms of the regions that have renewed for each, or the number of schools that have renewed for each region, I'm doing it by percentage versus the number, just because region 6, for example, versus region 1, or region 2 versus region 3, just very different demographically in the number of institutions. A couple of things on this dashboard that I have access to internally. Again, this is information that I'm certainly happy to share with you on a all NASPA basis or something that is more specific to your region, but we right now have 71% of our total renewals. So these are just members who have been members in the 2018-2019 year. 71% of them have renewed for another year with NASPA, and that is what we primarily work with for our institutional renewals. So that's really great. Like I said, we're trending about 100 or so institutions ahead of last year. So that's really excellent for us. As you can see, it's really ramped up. This graph right here just shows where we've gotten the majority of our payments, and it usually coincides with the fiscal years for institutions, which is why we typically do this in the summer. This is a really great chart. So one of the big reasons that we want institutions to renew is that individual members and our individual staff on those campuses get a highly subsidized individual member rate of $75. And in order to be a volunteer for NASPA, you have to be a member. So this just sort of shows you how many volunteer leaders are at institutions that have renewed. So we have 85% of our volunteer leaders currently are at renewed institutions, which is really great. If you are worried that your institution or somebody you know in your region is part of this 14% of non-renewed institutions, I'm happy to take a look at that on a regional basis. And then these are just for general member behavior information. So we like to take a look at, based on the general fund expenditure of each institution, so we're looking at 250 million down to 2 million or less, to see what the renewal count is for those areas, because that will give us over time an idea of how institutions behave. I think the typical assumption is that if you have more money, you're going to be more likely to renew faster. But if you have more money and you're a larger school, your dues are also larger. So that's not always true. We also take a look at non-renewed by enrollment. So full-time enrollment at institutions of 30,000 and over all the way to less than 500. And we like to sort of track the behavior of our members. If we should ever need to take a look at reaching out to institutions based on their previous behavior, the behavior that we've seen year to year, we have that information. Some of the best things that I usually typically show and have shared in previous meetings are the number of small colleges and universities. Those make up about 50% of our institutional members. And so right now, about 72% of small colleges and universities have renewed, and we still have about 27% that are still pending renewal for this year. So we are, if you are working with anyone specifically with the small colleges and universities division within your regions, that might be a good way to break down some of the outreach if you're looking for other ways to reach out to lapsed institutions. And I'll actually share here in a moment some information about our lapsed institution campaigns that we're running in addition to the institutional renewals. And then also community colleges. We are hoping to increase our community college engagement. So right now, overall, about 71% of community colleges who were members last year have renewed for this year, and about 28% are still pending. And so we are paying attention to that as well, because we'd like to increase our institutional membership within our community colleges area. One thing that is coming up in terms of communication, so as we come into August, the communications are going to vary depending on what the institution's renewal situation is. So one of the biggest messages that we send out to institutions that have not renewed, so this, the light blue area right here, is we send a message to the vice president for student affairs or whoever the most senior student affairs member is on that campus, letting them know that so we do a grace period of 3 months. Everyone's institutional membership expired on June 30th. So if they have expired, we give them a grace period of 3 months in order to submit payment to us, because we do have some schools that do not start their fiscal years until September, or some of them as late as October. But one of the big things that we like to remind our vice presidents or the voting delegates on that campus is that those staff on their campus who are going to be who are going to have expiring individual memberships after October 1st are at risk of not being able to renew at that $75 rate, because they'll lose that member benefit if the institution doesn't renew. So that means that come October 1st, there may be as many as, well, right now, about 1,500 individuals who are current NASPA members, who when they go to renew their membership after October 1st, if their institution hasn't renewed, will be renewing at the $242 rate, which is an incredibly high increase. So we like to let the vice presidents or the voting delegates know that, and then we also let them know that we're going to contact those individuals at their campuses, letting them know that if your institution doesn't renew, you will no longer be able to renew at the $75 rate. And then we notify the professional affiliates individually. And so we just want to make sure that you're also aware that we're sending out this communication to them that usually will prompt an institutional renewal, because oftentimes people just forget, because again, it's summertime and it can be really hectic. And so I do want to just kind of give you all a heads up that we do have that coming up. So that's just really it in terms of institutional renewals. Everybody's doing a really great job in terms of that. So there are a couple of other campaigns that are happening in the background in terms of getting more new members or reaching out to members that have lapsed in the past. If any of this sounds like something that you all want to do from a regional or from a state level, we can certainly talk about that. So I am currently working with our small colleges and universities division, as well as our community colleges division. The small colleges and universities division have already started their win back campaign, essentially. So what they are doing, and let me share this information with you. What they are doing is they are reaching out to members who have had their memberships lapse between 2016 through 2018. And so essentially what they get is they have a call sheet very similar to the call sheet that you all are calling from, and you'll see we have the caller's name right here, the name of the institution. They need to come in and come back and note what action they're going to take, so have they called the school, etc. But one of the things that we have added to this call campaign is under column D right here, we've noted if there are current NASPA members at their school, because they can use that as an opportunity for conversation. So for example, if Daryl calls Fairleigh Dickinson's Metropolitan Campus, he can note that there are 3 current NASPA members at that institution who are paying $242 each versus $75 were they to join as a NASPA institutional member. And as you can see, there's a number of schools that have at least 2 or more. This school, the University of Sciences in Philadelphia, has 4 NASPA members. And so we just use that as an opportunity for them to have some type of communication with the institution to let them know, hey, we'd love to have you back as an institution. Oh, by the way, you also have a number of staff members who already value NASPA as an organization. So by joining as an institution, you'll be able to give them the member benefit of 1, lower individual membership rates, as well as some additional benefits on top of that. So that's something that we're doing from a division standpoint. So right now we're just renewing institutions that have been part of NASPA year to year. One thing that we have not really done is recruit new institutions, which I'll be getting to in just a minute in terms of a NASPA-wide recruiting initiative, but it is something that we can certainly take a look at. So if there are specific types of institutions within your region, within the states that you all are working with, that you would like to do some type of outreach, if you feel that you should have more than 3 institutions that are members from a certain state, because there are so many schools in the US, if you want to do it from a specific divisional standpoint. So as I mentioned, I'm working with the small colleges and universities. I've sent a draft of the same exact proposal to Jake Frazier, who's working with our community colleges division. So if I can connect you all to these initiatives where we're doing some outreach to try to bring new institutional members in, let me know. And I'm happy to work on those so similar recruiting plans with all of you. Are there any questions so far?
Hi, this is Brenda. I've got a
Hi, Brenda.
question. So I had a meeting with my membership team last week. One question came up when we're reaching out to institutions. Is there like a follow-up electronic brochure that has the benefits outlines that we could send in an email, as opposed to, well, here's the link to the website here to look at this, but maybe something a little bit snazzier?
Yes. So we do have something. It doesn't list out the member benefits. So I am working to get the digital copies of some collateral that our team had on site at Annual about individual institutional memberships. And then we're working on a much larger digital print that we can send out. So something that can be an attachment. The only thing that we are a little bit weary of is that sending out emails or large emails with attachments typically get caught as spam. And so we're looking at how we would do this. So rather than sending it to the website and having people look through it, like maybe a landing page where it looks a little cleaner. So
Yeah.
that's certainly on my list to speak with our marketing communications department with. So we're having a lot of meetings because we just moved to a new email tool that has landing page capabilities. And so I'm certainly pushing for something that's a little like cleaner that they can look at and have a quicker snapshot of that.
Thank you.
Of course. In the meantime, I'm happy, Brenda, to help work on developing something that you can send out. It might be a little bit more homegrown than I'd like it to be, but I can certainly see if there is something in the interim that our marketing team can put together sort of fairly quickly. Since right now we have, multiple paper brochures and we have those PDFs, but the PDFs aren't situated in a way that would be an easy thing to just send to someone. So I'll work with them to see, what we can do in the interim until that's developed.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Of course. So another thing I wanted to remind everybody of, I'm a little bit off topic in our agenda. So updated institutional renewals. The other thing I wanted to make sure that everybody has had a chance to take a look at. I know I send weekly emails about this, but if you haven't already had a chance to take a look at how many LAPS institutions you have in your region, I will say Region 6 like really went all out. They even color coded all of their good stuff over here. But the biggest thing that I will say that we need is not only to have people sign up to make calls to these institutions, but to let us know that there's an action that's actually been taken. So under column C, we need to know, did you actually make those calls or did you send an email? I know that I have had a few folks in the region, some state directors reach out to me, letting me know that just in between orientation and all the other commitments they have on campus, it is not always feasible to make the phone calls, which I completely understand. And so I am happy to consider any type of outreach that you might have to these LAPS institutions. So we have given you links to an email template and some email scripts. So you can certainly, if your state directors just want to send a quick email versus a phone call, sometimes that can be an easy way to just get that communication out to them. That's certainly fine. We've already caught a couple of things with some of the regions. For example, I had a region that sent, one of the state directors sent emails out saying, hey, we'd love to have you renew for next year. And an institution was like, oh, we sent you a check back in June, but we haven't received it in our offices. We haven't cashed the check. And so that check is now lost somewhere in the netherworld of the Postal Service. And so it helps us catch things like that as well. So if you or your region or your board members or your state directors are not able to just really dedicate a set hour or so to make a phone call, but they would rather just send a quick email to say, hey, Jordana, we really love having you part of our region and part of our state as a NASPA member. We'd love for you to renew. They can certainly send that, send an email out instead of making a phone call. So I don't want to limit your outreach to them, but we would like to have you reach out to them as well, just because your influence and your relationship with those within your region and within your state really do make a difference in terms of them coming back and responding to us. And so we send a lot of things out to them, and we understand that, but during the month of July and the beginning of August, we're not really sending anything transactional. We're sort of relying on sort of these phone call and email outreach from the regions and from the states to sort of help break up some of that email transaction that we were sending out in May and June, and we'll be sending out again in September. So that's really it on institutional renewals. If you do have any questions about it, individually, you can certainly email me. I've also, in a lot of my emails, have given you a number where you can call or even send me a text message really quickly and say, Jordana, I need this. And Colleen can vouch for this. I am pretty responsive. So I will be more than happy to work with all of you individually to get that information. The next thing I wanted to note is that I know that it is the end of July, so I am now looking to your fall board meetings. I know that seems a little premature, but once the school year starts, things are going to probably be pretty hectic until the end of the semester. So I know that you're all receiving reports from Courtney weekly about how your region is doing. I know that once a month, Nathan has been or should be sending you all the year-to-year breakdown of what your membership is like. But if there are any additional, so I showed you that dashboard where we can break things down by professional level, we can break things down by state, we can break a lot of things down. So as you're thinking ahead to your fall board meetings or your fall conferences, if there are initiatives that you're currently working on right now from a membership standpoint, that would be helpful for you to know, for example, how many minority serving institutions are current members of your region, or how many minority serving institutions are not members of your region. Thinking about some of those membership outreach and recruiting initiatives that you might want to really get started with. It's a good time to start thinking about when you're going to need these reports in addition to the ones that you're already receiving weekly and monthly, and what information will that contain, when do you need it by. The reason I'm also asking for this a little bit ahead of time is my colleague Jenna Hartsfield, who is a reporting genius and has like amazing capabilities with that, is also going to be on maternity leave through the fall. So anything that I can start working on now would be helpful throughout August and September. So just something to keep in mind, maybe just a little note on your calendar. Oh, I have a board meeting or a fall board meeting in October. So like email me in September and let me know, are there any additional reporting needs that you might want in addition to the things that you're already receiving? So something to think about as you're having those meetings. Definitely talk to your state directors, talk to your regional leaders, and see what information would be helpful for you as a region in terms of membership to know in addition to what you're already receiving. I mentioned an NASPA-wide recruiting initiative. So the Rev team as a whole is looking to really ramp up our recruiting efforts. And for the 2019-2020 year, we would like to focus on minority-serving institutions that are not current NASPA members. Right now, based on the data that we have a list that we get from IPEDS. So we put in a lot of information. This is how we calculate all of our dues. Right now, we've identified about 673 minority-serving institutions across the United States that are not current NASPA members. We are working on developing a recruiting plan to do some type of outreach to these institutions. Most of them are not currently in our NASPA database, so we also have to be really careful in terms of how we contact them. So we have to follow a lot of FTC guidelines in terms of cold calling a lot of these schools, or reaching out to them and basically asking them to do some type of transaction with us. And so I'm reviewing a lot of these FTC guidelines right now. I'm working on developing a couple of versions of what this recruiting plan may look like. So looking at some test areas and some test groups. I met with our AVP for our marketing department today. So we've started to get some plans going for that. We don't have anything solid at this time, but I wanted to let you all know that from a big NASPA recruiting, we are going to be focusing on minority serving institutions for the 1920 year. So if that sounds like that might be an area that your region or those in your state might also be interested in, I would love to be able to collaborate with you all on that effort. And we'll share more about that plan as we actually get that plan a little bit more cleaned up and in place. But just a heads up, so if you are if this sounds like something that you've already been speaking with your regions about, please reach out to me, because I would love any and all help to reach out to 673 minority serving institutions. So I'm going to be breaking those up by institutions that have NASPA members at their institutions currently, institutions that have been NASPA members in the past but have let their institutional membership lapse, and then NASPA members who've never been NASPA, or institutions that have never been NASPA members before. So it's going to take a little bit of juggling multiple personalities in terms of this recruiting effort. But once we have that in place, I'm hoping October 1st is a good time for us to actually launch this. I will share that all with you, so that way you're aware of the efforts that we're doing. And if those are schools that you're also reaching out to, that you want to reach out to, let's talk about how we can collaborate versus duplicating our efforts on a national and regional level. And let me see. Oh, yes. I'm also in the middle of finalizing our graduate associate program cohort for the 1920 year, and I will share them with you all. I'm hoping to get every single region represented. I believe I had every region represented last year, but I did have some regions that had less representation grad student wise, and that's certainly something that I'd like to increase. And so I'm trying to take a look and find the areas within NASPA where we could find a little bit more graduate student representation. But one of the things that I'd like to do, and what I've been doing with our graduate students, is I've been trying to introduce to them NASPA at various levels. So a lot of them are very familiar with the regions, but most of them are not familiar with the different initiatives that NASPA does. So some of them may not be familiar with our Center for First Generation Student Success, or the Student ARC initiative that we're doing with emergency aid, research and policy. But for those of them who are familiar with the regions, some of them, that familiarity is just that they know they're in a specific region, but they don't know who you all are. They don't know that we have a regional leadership structure in place either. So I'll be reaching out to all of you individually to introduce you to those grad students within your region, because I'd really like for them to have a chance to get to know you all as regional directors and membership coordinators, to find out ways that they can continue to be involved with NASPA well beyond grad school. And I know we always talk about trying to reach out to our grad students and keep them engaged, but I think one of the biggest things that we can really do is just to educate them about what NASPA is and how the structure is leadership-wise, both from a national and regional perspective. So I will hopefully be connecting you with our graduate students. At some point, I'm hoping to make those final decisions this week. Okay, so today I did want to just kind of give you an overview about the regional welcome emails. I know we've been talking about this for some time in terms of the emails that NASPA is sending and the emails that the regions are sending. So right now, so for those of you, I don't know if many of you have already seen, I know I've worked with a couple of folks in different regions, but if you haven't already seen this note on the engagement portal, the regional email system that many of you have used in the past is going to become inactive after August 15th. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that or how many of you have been using that email system. There is a great training video in the engagement portal if you or your state directors have not had a chance to take a look at it. But it's, I think the way that you can customize emails to your region is really great. I know I've worked with some of the regions and some of the state directors already on this. But in terms of email, one of the big things I want to make sure that we are coordinating really well with are the types of emails that are going out. So right now, NASPA, or for at least for our team, what Rev is sending out is a one welcome email when a brand new member joins, and brand new member meaning we are assuming they've never been a member of NASPA before. And then towards the end of someone's membership, we send them 4 transactional emails. We let them know when they are 90 days away from expiring, 60 days, 30 days, and when their membership has expired. So we sort of bookend the conversations with members. And so what I think would be ideal, and I know that we've been talking about this for some time, is to figure out a number of things with the welcome email together as a group, and then to make sure that your state directors and for you all as well who are sending transactional emails to your members, that you're all aware that we're already sending emails to members saying that they're going to be expiring. So in terms of transactional members or transactional emails at the end of a membership's time, the member is already receiving multiple notices that their membership is expiring. It's almost like, yeah, we get it. And so if you're thinking of the types of emails that you should be sending to your members, I would suggest that the email saying that your membership is expiring should remain those kind of boring 4 transactional emails that NASPA HQ sends, and that if you want to contact members in your region, or if your state directors want to contact members in their state whose memberships are expiring, that the content of the email be more nurturing than transactional. So instead of saying, hey, Colleen, your membership is expiring, it might look a little bit more like, dear Colleen, we really value you as a member of Region 3 and as well as a member in the state of Virginia. And here are some of the things that we've done over the past year or the past month that we've really been working to make sure that we are giving you the best experience possible as a NASPA member. And so, let us know, this is a good time at the end of someone's membership to start asking them, what is it that they may not have received as far as a benefit or as engagement or as an experience. So thinking about steering away from saying, hey, Colleen, your membership is expiring. We want you to stay a member in our state, because they're already receiving that same exact email from NASPA. like HQ, and changing the content to be more, hey Colleen, what is it, what can we do to make sure that you renew when your membership expires? So that's just something to think about in terms of content, and we can certainly talk about the types of emails that are being sent out. But in terms of the welcome emails, I've mentioned this before, and we have decided that what we're going to do is we are going to segment out those welcome emails, and we're going to need help from all of you to help develop content in terms of when they're going to be receiving these emails. So I did just want to really quickly share again, and thank you all for participating in my screen sharing exercises here today. But this is a report that you all are able to pull from the engagement portal. And I wanted to pay special attention to columns B through D. And one of the things I want everyone to sort of take a look at and really see are the original join date under B, join date, and expiration date. So what we're going to do when we start determining these new welcome emails, sort of this onboarding campaign, is we're going to look at people who are considered brand new NASPA members. And so brand new NASPA members are always going to have the same original join date and the same join date. And so you'll start to see that. I'll make this like really big because I know that some of you are. So you'll see this member, Camille, in Region 2, is, we're assuming she's a brand new member because her join date and her original join date and her join date are the same exact date. We also want to take a look at people who have been, or we're assuming are longtime NASPA members or have been members year to year. And those are people who, right here, you'll see their original join date and their join date are different. So those are two of the three segments that we're going to be looking at. So we're going to assume that Benjamin originally joined in 2013 and is still currently an NASPA member in 2019. So we want Benjamin's email when he makes that membership purchase, not to say, welcome, Benjamin, we're so glad that you're part of NASPA, because we're assuming Benjamin has already been part of NASPA for some time. We want that welcome email to basically say, hey, Benjamin, thank you for continuing to be part of NASPA after all of these years. We're really glad that you are still, continuing on your NASPA journey with us. And then the third group, which I don't have listed on here, are NASPA members who have let their memberships lapse and expire and didn't renew right away. So they renewed 2 or more months after it's expired. So they let some time pass. So that can be anywhere from 2 months to 3 years or more. And we want that conversation to also be very different. So we want that email to be, dear Brenda, we're so glad that you came back to NASPA. So there's, welcome Brenda, you're a brand new member. Hi Brenda, we're glad that you're still here. And welcome back Brenda, we're glad you came back to us. So those are sort of 3 different buckets or personalities that we want to start messaging to. So that first initial email is going to come from NASPA HQ. That's going to be your very routine email. But what we want to do in that email is really think about what do we want them to feel when they get that? Do we want them to feel like they got value for their money when they made that membership purchase? Do we want them to feel some kind of other warm and fuzzy feeling like they love NASPA so much, which is why they joined? So we're going to flesh out a little bit of that content there. But then the third and fourth emails in this welcome email chain are going to be from you all, from the regions. And so what we're going to need from you over the next couple of weeks is helping develop what that email content is going to be like. So they're going to get a warm and fuzzy welcome email, NASPA HQ. Then the second email that they'll get a week later is going to direct them to learn more about NASPA in some way. And you'll all get to see the content of all these emails. And then it's going to split into the regions. And so email number 3, Colleen is going to get, and that's going to be from her regional director. And it's going to say, dear Colleen, we're really excited that you're part of NASPA. in this region, look at all of these things that we're doing. But we don't know if, and we don't want that necessarily to be the same for each region. We really want the voice of the region and the regional director to come through. So we're going to need, that content from you all. And then the fourth email is going to really depend on what we want the next step. So we're gonna, we see this as an opportunity to educate and re-energize our members and make them feel valued throughout this. And so we have a regional director email, and then, we've talked about, do we then talk about the divisions that they're in? So if Brenda is from a small college and university, is her fourth email going to be, dear Brenda, since you're at a small college, look at all of these small college and university specific things that you can do. So we're going to be developing those first 4 emails. We're starting with 4. We technically could do like as many emails as we want to, but we really want to start small and test this out and see if this makes our members engage with us more. Because oftentimes we have members who join because they just needed a discount for an event, and that's the only time they're going to log into NASPA to sign up for the event. And then once the event is done, we don't hear from them again. And maybe that's okay. I think that having them show up to anything is great. But I think ultimately what we'd like all of our members to do is develop an affinity for NASPA as soon as possible. And
Sure,
how we do that. Hi, Francisco. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Been out of commission lately with health issues, but I'm back.
We're so glad that you're here. Are you feeling better?
Yeah, but there's still issues. You know how that is.
Well,
I wanted to chime in a little bit about like email number 3 and 4, just to say something generally, not that we're going to do that today, but I think timing of year is going to play a lot with it, because as you note in all of our emails, people are joining at all different times. Yes, there's a big push after conference and those kinds of things, but they're all over the place. Because in order for, in our case, Terry, to be very almost personable to some extent and saying, hi, I'm your regional director, I mean, to not sound too generic, it would be great if she could announce the upcoming activities that the region is doing.
Absolutely.
But at different times of the year, that could be a small list or a very extensive list. I mean, we could generally always say, generally, we do this in our region, XYZ. But it'd be always nice if there's room in that communique to say the most coming thing. And I just don't know how regional directors are going to have that kind of time to keep updating that little segment of the letter.
So one of the things that I love about our new marketing tool is that it is incredibly powerful, and it can do that dynamic content that we talked about, and at the time I couldn't say for sure that we were going to have it because we didn't pick our tool yet, but now we have, and we're working with HubSpot, which is really phenomenal. I think, Francisco, what I am envisioning, and this is where you all can tell me if I am super off base here or if it's even possible, is to use these monthly membership meetings and obviously like the email communications that we're sending out to determine, like, can I email all of you regional directors and membership coordinators at the end of, or like the middle of each month, to say, hey, can you get me in the next 2 weeks anything that you want to show up in that regional email for next month? Like what would be a reasonable way for me to get that from all of you without me bugging you constantly, right? But also, like you said, Francisco, so that way the content is always changing, so that the voice is still very much Terry's, but that we are cognizant of the time of the month, that when it's time for your regional conference in the summer, that we're talking about that is an upcoming thing, versus say, in November or December, when you might want to be talking about, or even in January, you want to be talking about your receptions at annual conference.
Right. I think the best way would probably be that, the intro paragraph is all, sort of the personality of the regional director, and maybe the closing as well. But then it's that center,
that middle part.
Fill in, because depending on time, like for instance, in January, we have usually deadlines or upcoming deadlines for MMI. If we're doing it in our region, we'll have deadlines coming up for people to put in programs for our summer conference. So those would be things that we'd be highlighting, even if it's just bullets in the center of that letter,
Sure.
even if the intro and the closing is very similar. And the next month, it could be a little different because we pull off the one that passed already,
Yeah,
But that's my thought for now. And I
absolutely.
think that's reasonable if it's bulleted kind of things. I think we can either she or the membership person in collaboration with her or the region director could be the ones to communicate back to you.
Yes, and that's exactly what we're sort of envisioning is that there's going to be a general template, right, for the email. So, dear Colleen, intro paragraph about the region, closing paragraph, follow us on all the social media, and then that middle part, like you said, Francisco, is so really what I'm hoping to determine is, can I, like, starting say October, to give you all a couple of months to think through this, start calendaring out and say, okay, on the 15th of each month, can I email this group and say, is there anything that you want to change in that middle space because it currently says this, and just kind of do so I would help curate and gather that information, but all of those welcome things, all of those emails would just be sent automatically when somebody joins, and they would just get it sort of in this little sequence, 24 hours, 1 week, 1 month, 4 months, so that way it's spaced out. And then keeping in mind too, in the middle of all this, they're going to get all the other NASPA emails that go out. So so I also want to be cognizant of the fact that they're probably going to be getting some of these things. So what would be a reasonable time frame? And I'll send out at the end of the, when I send the notes out for this, like a little survey that says, what does the majority of this group feel would be a reasonable way for me to gather that information to you? Is it going to be in a form in the engagement portal? Is it a Google Doc? Is it really just simply me emailing each one of you individually saying, hey, we're getting ready to send next month's email out. Is there anything that you want to update in this space? So that's just, I want to make sure that you all start thinking about that. You take that back to your regional, leadership, to your meetings that you're having, because really what we want to do is we want the emails that you all are sending out through that engagement portal to be ways for you to nurture your members, get them to stay members, get them to go to drive-ins, get them to volunteer for things, get them to write blogs for you, whatever it is. And all of the transactional emails at the front and the end of their membership cycle to be something that we can just automate and send out. But we also don't want to lose that human touch. So we want to put a human name to these form emails, right? We don't want to just be like, welcome NASPA member, thank you from NASPA. We want it to say, dear NASPA, we are, dear member, we're so excited that you're in region 2, and my name is Terry, and this is what I do. And this is what we're going to do for your region. So that's just, we've determined the number of emails. So there's going to be 4. We see the regions, and then we kind of need to determine what that 4th email is going to look like. So we still want it to be region focused, but is that region focused with the state? Is that region focused by, we can really segment this out we can chop this up as granular as we wanted to. So is the 4th email from their state director, but keeping in mind that you don't always have state directors in place at the times that these are coming out. So how do we, what is our backup plan? Is there a default email that goes out with email number 4 if, say, you don't have a state director for Rhode Island, or you don't have a state director for Virginia on board yet? Because I know I'm learning about new state directors all the time, because some people have commitments that can drop in and out, and or does it come from the division, as I mentioned? So we need to think a little bit more of what that 4th email is going to be like. So in my notes after this meeting, I will share with you the template of what types of the 4 types of emails that are going to go out, who they're going to go out from, and then just a couple of questions that I'm going to leave open-ended for you all to think about for our next meeting. So I'll probably email you all in 2 weeks and try to solicit some type of collaborative response from all of you. So something to think through, but we definitely want to start onboarding these folks. And there's probably going to be multiple versions of emails number 3 and 4, because again, we don't want to say, Dear Jordana, welcome to NASPA if Jordana's been a longtime NASPA member from the region. We want to say, we're so glad you're still here. And we don't want to say, we're so glad you're still here to somebody who's been gone for like 5 years. We want to say, welcome back. And so, you know, we're going to have multiple versions of all of this. So the reason that this is, you know, when I initially started talking to all of you, and you probably have that Google Doc that had like 12 months and 12 touch points, there's just going to be so many emails that are going to be going out in different versions now that we've determined the types of members that are going to be getting this, that we want to really get it right with a small email campaign. And if it ends up being successful and runs nice and smoothly, we can always add more emails in, right? We can always add more, but I think it's better to add more later once we've perfected this and really differentiate the messaging. Absolutely. I agree, Francisco. I think it's critical that we be as human in our automated emails as possible. And that comes with a differentiated messaging. And I think that with this new email tool in place, we can certainly do that. And maybe our members don't really care that they're not getting like a nice onboarding welcome series of emails now, but we honestly don't know that, and we haven't ever really reached out to them. And maybe it will make a difference in how they interact, not just with NASPA HQ, but with the regions as well. Maybe it will prompt a little bit more interest and a little bit more engagement that I think can only be a good thing. So I will certainly send that information out. And let you know like all the different types of emails and the different types of audiences that we're going to be requiring some type of messaging from. So that is where we're at. I know I gave you all tons of stuff, screen shared everything. This is all recorded, so you can watch this to your heart's content. If you want to rewatch the beginning of the meeting, send this to your state directors, to your regional director, membership coordinator. But I'd like to just leave the last 10 minutes to open it up for any questions, comments, concerns, anything that I can answer from a membership perspective while you all have me locked and loaded, ready to pull up information for you. Like I said, you can always also email me individually, ask me individual questions specific to your region or to specific demographics within your region as well. So, you know, myself, Colleen, Danny, and Nathan are here to make sure that you have everything that you need in order to make sure that you're serving your members well and that you have all the resources available. The one last thing I'm going to note is that I know that there are a couple of events that some of you may be having, either drive-ins or, you know, little opportunities to promote NASPA in some way. We can certainly, we have a lot of just some like general NASPA membership collateral, like I said, that we had at annual conference. I'm reordering like tons of that. So if you can think of any areas or any events that are upcoming that would be helpful to have like a membership brochure or just some sort of general NASPA information, just make sure you give myself and Colleen about a two week at the absolute like latest time to get that out to you, because oftentimes it only takes us a couple of days to put things together, but then we also want to be mindful of shipping it out to you. And not having to do some sort of rush shipment for that. So definitely let us know if there are any events that it would be helpful for you to have like a general, like in your hand physical brochure, because we do have those developed. Hopefully we'll have something more digital and pretty to send to you all, but you know, please continue making those calls to the lapsed institutions in your regions, or shoot that person a quick email. You know, oftentimes they lose, we send paper invoices, but you know, I can't imagine what a VPSA's desk looks like, but if it looks like any of my previous VPs that I've worked with, it's usually pretty stacked high. And you know, I'll continue to weekly let you all know how your regions are doing as far as institutions, and then you'll continue to get the weekly membership updates from Courtney. And if you want to make a folder in your inbox that says stuff Jordana emails me, and you can just have everything filtered and go there, you can always just look back on that and get reference for it. But are there any questions? If not, I'd love to give you all 10 minutes of your day back, and thank you again for your time. I will make a copy, or I will save this recording and send it out with the notes, as well as an outline of those emails that I just mentioned. And if you can think of anything that comes up between now and our next meeting, just shoot me an email, send me a text, and set up a time for me to help you all out in whatever way I can. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.